For more on the final push for the White House, let's turn now to Lawrence Douglas. He's a law professor at Amherst College and the author of Will He Go? We've reached him in Sunderland, Massachusetts. Lawrence, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be with you, Natasha.
Lawrence, the question that we wanted to pose to you is one of Trump and his seeming reluctance to leave the White House. For months, he has attacked the legitimacy of the election results. He says he doesn't trust them. He doesn't trust mail-in voting. And there's even been an implication that he may not go. How realistic is that possibility with Donald Trump?
Well, I don't think it's realistic that he would, let's say, try to barricade himself in the White House come January 20th after Joe Biden has been duly inaugurated as president of the United States. So I don't imagine that happening. I don't imagine any scenario in which we would need to see the military frog marching Donald Trump out of the White House. But I do think what the danger is that in the period from November 3rd, from Tuesday, until January 20th, that's a situation which, depending on how the vote breaks out in the coming days, we could imagine him playing kind of constitutional brinkmanship. That is, really trying to insist that he has been reelected, that the mail-in ballots are fraudulent and can't be counted. And he could, really try to muddy the waters so that we're just not certain about the result. And I think that's the real danger. That is the period between November 3rd and January 20th.
And what exactly is the danger then? Because if it's not realistic that he would barricade himself inside the White House, that if he is, and of course we don't know what the results are going to be, but if he gets voted out, that he'll likely go, then what does it matter if he muddies the waters during that time? What would that mean?
Well, I think, again, it depends a lot on how the votes, how the United States ends up voting. That is, if Biden wins a decisive electoral victory, and if that decisive electoral victory is apparent to us pretty quickly, that is maybe not on November 3rd itself, but certainly within a couple of days, then I think Trump's opportunities to create this kind of constitutional brinkmanship will be dramatically limited. But I think what the danger is if it ends up that the election turns on, let's say, the late count of mail-in ballots in just a couple of swing states, such as, for example, Pennsylvania, then the politics of muddying the water could be pretty effective and really could kind of cast larger doubts about the national outcome. So I think that's where the danger would lie.
Is it a matter of removing the public's trust in the system?
I think it's, for one thing, I think that is the case. I mean, I think it is certainly that, if he's successful at leading tens of millions of Americans to kind of doubt the outcome, that's one thing. The other thing is, again, it's not necessarily an entirely likely scenario, but it certainly is a possible one that, if the count ends up turning on, these handful of swing states, and if the margins separating let's say Trump and Biden in Pennsylvania are very narrow, then that politics of muddying the water could actually lead, let's say, Republican legislators in a state like Pennsylvania to support Trump. That is, to conclude that he has won the state, let's say, based on earlier electoral returns from November 3rd.
Have we ever been in a situation like this before? Has there ever in American history been a time where a president said, "No, I'm not going"?
No, that's unprecedented. But what we have seen in American history is we've certainly seen electoral disputes that have threatened to turn into total electoral catastrophes. We saw that in the year 2000, and most famously and notoriously, we saw that in 1876, where you really did have a situation in which a couple of swing states just really couldn't figure out who had carried their state. And it created a really, really disastrous electoral dispute.
Many would see the fact that we're having this conversation as a representation of, the media being against Trump and not necessarily being fair. Why do you think having this conversation about will he go, as you've posed the question, why is this significant right now?
Well, I think one thing that we can say is Donald Trump is not a particularly sneaky person. I mean, he's pretty transparent in messaging his intentions. And, I think we need to take him at his word. He has always consistently said that the only way for our electoral system to demonstrate its legitimacy is if he wins. And any loss will simply be an indication that the system has been rigged. And again, that's not just statements coming from him. And if you go back to even when he was a candidate in 2016, he lost the Iowa caucus to Senator Ted Cruz from Texas. And the very next morning, he was out there tweeting saying that I didn't lose. Ted Cruz stole the Iowa caucus and the results should be tossed out. So, and this is, messaging that has been really consistent from 2016 until, we can even say this past Monday, when he issued a tweet, which again suggested that we need to go with the November 3rd results and we can't trust the mail-in ballots.
We just have time for one more quick question. So I wonder if I could ask you to make a prediction. Based on what you're seeing out there and your own studies, what do you anticipate is going to happen on the night of November 3rd?
Well, I suppose I could say I'm not sure if I'm cautiously optimistic or cautiously pessimistic. I do think that that Trump is headed towards a decisive loss. We might not know the contours of that loss on November 3rd itself, but my hope would be that we would get a sense of that relatively quickly. Again, if not on November 3rd itself, then in a few days thereafter, and that again would, I think, dramatically check his ability to engage in constitutional brinkmanship.
Lawrence Douglas, author of Will He Go? We've reached him in Sunderland, Massachusetts. Thank you, sir.
Oh, my pleasure to be with you.